let's add a custom entity to Minecraft. Alright, we find ourselves back in IntelliJ once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding a custom entity or custom mob to Minecraft. Now for this we will be using Geckolib, so this is an extra library. I'm just going to open it right here. So this is the GitHub repository for Geckolib, and then this is the wiki. This will be linked in the description below as well. Of course, all of the code that we're writing is also going to be linked in a GitHub repository in individual gists as well. And this is going to be really useful. So why are we using Geckolib? The general idea is that Geckolib allows us to make very easy animations with BlockBench. And I mean, it's just going to make our lives way easier. I highly suggest also using Geckolib for all your entities because it just makes your life way easier. And also, I'm going to say this, you can't follow the tutorial if you're not using Geckolib. It just is what it is. So there are differences if you want to use, the vanilla animations and stuff versus the actual Geckolib animations. There is a difference. And if, for example, you're like, oh, I don't want my people, I don't want the users, let's say, to have to install another mod, that is completely normal. That is nothing out of the ordinary. If you think that that's an issue, it honestly isn't. It really isn't. You just have to explain on, for example, CurseForge, hey, you also have to install Geckolib. And usually, I mean, most users are going to be totally fine with that. I don't think that there's, no one's going to be like, well, if I have to install 2 mods, then I don't want to, use that mod. It's very rare that that happens, so it should be fine. Whatever the case may be, you can see right here, Fabric 118. So those are the things that we have to add. And let's just actually see where we have to add them. So in our build.gradle file, we have this, and that is going to be the repositories first and foremost right here. And here we want to add the following. So here we want to add this one right here, this Maven one. So I'm just going to select it, press Ctrl-C to copy it, and then Ctrl-V to paste it in. Very important that we have this. The second thing is in the dependencies right here, and here we want to add this one, right? So this mod implementation, software Bernie, Geckolib, and so on and so forth. So we're going to copy this one over as well, and then add this to below right here. So we're going to add it right here, and there we go. Now we have both the things that we need, and what we then do is we just hit this little elephant. If this doesn't appear for you, you can open the Gradle tab and then hit the Reload All Gradle Projects button, and then it will build. This will take anywhere from a few seconds to maybe a minute or 2, depending on how fast your computer is, how fast your internet connection is. Just keep, calm, just, let this run through, be patient, and then we should be fine. All right, so build successful in 30 seconds. Hopefully you will also get a build successful. Just make sure that, everything here is pasted in correctly. And also, once again, I have the wiki linked. So if anything here changes, you should be able to very easily tell, certain changes there. And before we jump into the code, what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at BlockBench, and namely the actual entity that we're going to create. And right here, there it is. It's going to be a raccoon. So this is going to be added to Minecraft in this case with our mod. And it's going to be really awesome. Now there's a couple of things that we have here. The first thing is that when you're using BlockBench for this, you actually will need a plugin. So go to File, Plugins, and then we need this Geckolib Animations Util plugin. So that's very important that we have this. You can just go to Available, search for Geckolib, and then you should find it. I, of course, already have it installed. That's why it doesn't show up. So you need this plugin very much. So this is important. And then also, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you also need the Fabric modded entity. I'm not quite sure, but, just in case, install it as well. I think that this is important. But yeah, that would pretty much be all that you need. And once you have this, this BlockBench model will be available to you as well, by the way. So this is available to you in the description below for download as well. And there's a couple of things that you can do. So we have this animate right here, because what you do is when you create a new actual model, you make a Geckolib animated model right here, just test whatever. And then this will have this animate button. So that's very interesting. So let's just actually take a look at the animate button. You can see we can define certain animations. So if you ever work with something like Premiere Pro or any type of key framing software, any animation or any possible editing software, this should be kind of familiar to you. This is a timeline, and we can basically define certain keyframes in this. So if I just play this, you can see the body and everything is moving up and down a little bit, and the tail is wagging, just like in a general way. So what I can do is I can actually click on the tail here, and you can see that the rotation here has a keyframe. And you can see the keyframe in this case is actually some mathematics in this case, right? So we're just making a sine wave with it and just moving it back and forth in a sine wave fashion. The same thing actually goes for the position of the head. So if I click on this, you can see it's just moving up and down in the position with a sine wave as well. Because the sine wave, you know, you probably have seen this, it's just like a wave like this. So it actually is perfect for, you know, sort of an idle animation in this case. Similar to the walking, you can see the walking here. So the walking, you know, this is the walking animation, and this is actually done, you know, frame by frame. So keyframe, you know, you can see that it then changes from the X0 to X. This is the head, by the way, that it changes. You can also take a look at the legs. So let's actually look at the leg. You can see those are also changing. This would be this one right here, the foot, for example. So this is, you know, how animations work. There is like a crazy depth that we could go in here. I'm not going to go too in depth on how animations work. I highly recommend at the beginning just trying out a bunch of stuff. Be open to experimentation. This is the most important thing here. You know, you're not going to make the best animation the first time. Maybe you're a natural, who knows? But, you know, it's just going to be a thing where you have to refine it. But overall, it's not that, you know, difficult to really do. Like if we, for example, let's just, for the sake of argument, just add a new animation for a test here. Let's just, so we're not going to use that, but we're just going to, you know, put this in. So this is the test animation now. Let's just say, for example, in this animation, we would just want the head to sort of rotate around a little bit. So what you can do, of course, is you can say, you know, you can take the rotation here and then just say, okay, at this frame, you know, the rotation is 0, 0, 0, and then we're just moving along a little bit, right? So then here we want to set a new frame. So for example, we want this to be, you know, 50. So then, you know, it rotates around. And what's going to happen is that if I actually make a new keyframe here by pressing this plus, then you can see it interpolates between those. So actually, let's go right here. This is 0. There you go. And then this is 50. And then what's going to do is you can see it moves around. So this is the end of the animation. So I can actually drag this on and change it here, and then I'm going to stay in that, you know, vicinity a little bit longer. And what I can then do, for example, is I can make a new one right here. So let's just do the same one. So then it's going to stay in this 50, and then it's going to move back maybe to 0, right? There you go. And then what I can do is press the plus again, and then have a animation where it looks right there, and then back. Let's just make this stay a little bit longer. This one is not quite right, so I can press on this again. This is actually going to be 50, sorry. There you go. And then let's do this. There you go. So as you can see, there you go. So it can be, you know, quite tricky to make really cool animations, but overall it's just a matter of, like I said, experimenting with it, and it's going to be really freaking cool. But we won't want to use this test animation. We have the idle animation that you've seen, right? It's just like wagging its tail a little bit and just sort of breathing. It's incredible how just this tiny bit of movement actually adds a lot of let's say, like, you know, life to this animation. It's really cool. The walking animation we've seen already as well, and then there's also a sitting animation in which it doesn't really do anything, it's just sitting. This is actually going to be important for the next tutorial in this case, but that's going to be fine. Right, so we have all of this done. Now, what can we do with this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to File and then Export, and we can see Export Geckolib Model. So we can export this, and this is going to be exported in a particular folder right here. Actually, there you go. So this is going to be, as you can see, raccoon.geo.json. This is a GeoJSON file, and you can see this is usually a Bedrock model, but in our case, we can actually use this in Java as well. This is why Geckolib is so incredibly useful in this case, and this is going to be great. So we can then also go to animate, and I believe what we can do is we can also export the animations. This should be doable via animations, and then save all animations. There you go. So we can go here, and this is also going to go right here. So raccoon.animations. It's raccoon.animation.json, and we actually have a typo here. It's going to be 2 C's. That's fine. There you go. And that should be that as well. And then we have both the JSON files that we need. So we need a GeoJSON file for the actual model right here. We need a animations JSON file for the animations. And then we also have the texture here, of course, and that's just going to be a PNG file. I have this saved as well. So those are basically the 3 big things that we're going to need. And then the rest is basically up to the code and how we deal with this. So let's just switch back to IntelliJ here, and let's start coding this. So this is going to be really freaking interesting. So I will be copying over a lot of the code, but once again, all of this is available to you in the description below, GitHub repository, and individual gist as well, and I'll explain best of my ability. So in the tutorial mod package, we're going to right-click new package called entity, and then inside of there, we're going to make a new package called custom. This is, of course, once again, to hold our custom entities. And then we're also going to make a new Java class called the mod entities. There you go. Now, this is not going to be filled at the moment. First of all, we wanted to make the raccoon entity class. So in the custom package, right-click new Java class, raccoon entity. There you go. And this is going to be very interesting because this will extend the animal entity class for the time being, and it will also implement the iAnimatable. The iAnimatable here, you can see software Bernie Geckolib. So this is from Geckolib. So this is why you need Geckolib in this case. Let's hover over this and implement methods. It's going to be a few methods right here. And then we're going to hover over again and create constructor matching super. So this should be totally fine. And everything here should be all right at the moment. We then need a something to return right here. So this is the animation factory. So those two methods are from the iAnimatable and are used for the animations. So let's do the animations first, and then we'll do a few other things second. So this is going to be animation factory, just called factory, and this is equal to a new animation factory, and then just passing in this. And then we can return the factory right here. That's going to be fine. And for the controller right here, we'll actually need a predicate. This is, just the call, like what it's called basically. And I will copy over the actual method for this, but it's not going to be that crazy. So you can see it basically returns a play state here, and what you pass in is just an animation event of iAnimatable. And the idea here is that when this event is moving, so basically the idea being if this raccoon entity is moving, then we want to play the animation raccoon walk, and if it's not moving, then we want to play the animation raccoon idle. That's the general idea here. That's pretty much all that there's to it. And then this is also sort of boilerplate code in the register controllers right here, where we just say animation data, add animation, make a new animation controller with this. We're just calling it controller, and then passing it at the very end here, this predicate. So this predicate that we've just added is then passed in here, and this will play our animations in our animations JSON. So this is a thing that we're going to add in just a moment, but yeah, this is basically what we're going to do. And this name right here, right, if we actually switch back to BlockBench for a second, this is the name right here. So if I actually double click on this, you can see animation raccoon idle and animation raccoon walk. So this is very important that those match right there, and then you should be fine. The child we're actually going to see in a future tutorial here, where we're going to create the baby entities. It's not very complicated, but I want everything set up, and then we're going to add the baby entities at the end, basically in a separate tutorial, and that's going to be fine as well. Right, this is almost everything that we need. There's a few more things, of course. So for an entity, let's just go in for entities in general. We can middle mouse button click on this animal entity and actually see, for example, the animal entity and all of its different methods that it has. And you can see there's quite a few. And once again, what you can do is you can click on it and press Control H, and you can see all of the different entities from vanilla, and you can see how they work, what they do, how their behavior is. So for example, let's go into the sheep one, right? And then maybe the sheep one is not the best example. Let's go with the pig maybe. The pig might be okay. So you can see there's init goals, which we've not added yet. We're going to add this in just a moment. But this is basically the brain and the AI of the actual entity. This is all done with certain goals. So I'm not going to go into too crazy of a detail with the goals, because I mean, you could probably make a 10-hour course just for the goals, because there are so many of them. So if I middle mouse button click on this and then click on the goal, press Control H, look at how many goals there are, and these aren't even like all of them. If I actually expand all of them, you can see there's even more. So you can see there are a lot of goals, there's a lot of stuff in here, and it can get very, very complicated if you have a certain mob or a certain entity that you have very particular, AI for. It's just about, once again, being open to experimentation, try it out. It can get very specific, but with a lot of Java knowledge as well, because at this point you're not gonna get through without any Java knowledge here. You hopefully will be able to really get and understand a lot of stuff in here. So the init goals, this is something that we're going to need, and then there's some other stuff as well, which we're going to see in a little bit later as well. So let's get the init goals first and foremost. So I'm just going to copy this over again. Once again, everything here is available to you. So this is the init goals. As you see, this goal selector add, and then we have a priority. The priority here is the lower the number here, the higher the priority. So basically, it's first and foremost going to do the swim goal, and then it's going to do the wander around goal, a point of interest. Then it's going to wander far goal, then it's going to look around, and then it's going to look at entity goal, meaning the player entity. So this is how it works with the priorities. Best to play around with them as well and to just check out a bunch of different goals that you have at your disposal and just play around with those as well. The next thing we're going to need is very important, and that is the attributes. So I'm going to copy this over as well. This is the default attribute container builder. So you can see set attributes. This just sets the health, the max damage, the attack speed, and the movement speed here. This is incredibly important because if we don't set the attributes, then it's actually not going to work. So this is why this is very, very important that we actually have this. So keep that in mind to add this as well. So then what we also want to add, or what we can add, is some custom sounds. So I'm just going to add them at the very back here, actually, so below the get factory method. So I'm just going to once again copy those over. Those are 4 different methods that we can override. That's the get ambient sound, the get hurt sound, get death sound, and the play step sound. So I've just, chosen a few sound events here. You can, of course, also, when you have added your own custom sound events, add those in here and return those, and that will also work as well. So that's really cool. So you can basically, customize your raccoon entity or your entity however way you like, and it's also going to sound custom, basically. That's the general idea here. And that is pretty much the entire raccoon class done. There isn't anything else. Like I said, the child we're going to do in a later lecture as well, so where we can actually spawn a child from this, and we can actually breed those as well. But that's going to be done, as I said, in a later lecture. So then what we actually want to do is we want to register this entity in our mod entities class, and this is going to look as follows. So let's just go in here and make a public static final, and this is going to be a entity type. And then the angle brackets, and inside of there, we want to write raccoon entity. This is called raccoon. There you go. And this is equal to registry.register. This is going to be registry.entityType. Go, comma, new identifier from netmicroviewtil here. Tutorial mod.modID, comma, and then raccoon. So this is going to be the name. There you go. After the first parentheses, a comma. And then we want to call the fabric entity type builder. So it's going to be this one right here, fabric entity type builder dot create. And then inside of it, we want to say spawn group. This is going to be creature, comma, raccoon entity, : new. And then once again, after the first parameter, or the first closing parentheses rather, a dot dimensions. So let's just actually format this a little bit differently. So this is going to be the dimensions of the hitbox of this. Instead of here, we're going to do entity dimensions dot fixed. And then we're going to do 0.4f and 0.3f. I've already tried this out. This should be the most sensible one. And then at the very end, we're going to say build, and then end this with a semicolon. And then we don't even need this one right here. So we might get an error right here in this raccoon entity. No worries. Let's actually look at this. So you can see this is just because it has protected access. What does that mean? Let's go in here. You can see the constructor has protected access. We just need to change this to public, and then this should be fine as well. So no worries there at all. We actually forgot one closing parentheses. There you go. And now no more errors should be present in here, and everything should be fine. Now this, however, is not everything that we need to do, because what we need to do is we also need a renderer and a model for this. So what does that mean? Well, this means that we basically want the model to point to the animations and the actual model file, and the renderer basically determines how the actual entity is rendered. So for this, what I actually have in the entity package, we're going to create a new package called client. And inside of there, we're going to add the renderers and the models. So we're going to do raccoon model. And we're also going to create a new Java class called the raccoon renderer. There you go. And let's see how those work. Let's start with the model first. So the model is going to extend the animated GeoModel class. And once again, we want to have the angle brackets and put in the raccoon entity in this case. So let's just hover over this and implement methods. Those are going to be 3 methods: the get model location, the get texture location, and the get animation file location. So those are going to be identifiers, and they're going to point to the GeoJSON file for this one. This is going to be the texture file, and this is going to be the animation JSON. So it's going to be very straightforward. This is just going to be a new identifier, tutorial mod.modID, and the actual path is going to be geo/raccoon.geo.json. And then let's actually add the other ones as well. So this is going to be a new identifier, in this case, tutorial mod.modID, textures/entity/raccoon/ raccoon.png. And the last but not least, let's actually add, let's actually just copy this one over here for the sake of argument, because then we can just change this, and this is going to be in animations, and this is going to be raccoon.animation.json. And what we also want is the setLivingAnimations method. So this is going to be an interesting method. I'm going to copy this over, and we don't actually need to think about this too crazily. Like, this looks pretty freaking insane, right? It's like, oh my god, it's, we're doing pi divided by 180. What is this? Well, this just does the following. This just gets the head. So it's very important that the bone name head, right? So let's actually switch here, that this one right here is called head. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Exactly written like this. So your head has to be written like this in a group in this case. Then it's going to work. And what it's going to do then is it's going to move its head when the player is, close to it, basically. And it's going to move the player, move the head and look at the player. So what's also important is that you have the look at entity event and the player entity class selected here. So then the actual raccoon entity will, from time to time, look at the player. So that's basically what this does. And what we can do then is actually add the JSON file, the texture, and the other JSON file as well. Let's go down into our assets folder. So this is going to be in the assets tutorial mod. We need 2 new folders. The first one is going to be the geo folder, and the second one is going to be the animations folder. So in the animations folder, we want to put the animations JSON. Should be fairly self-explanatory. There you go. And let's just make sure that this is correct, so that everything here is written correctly, but it looks fine. Those are just, what basically happens here. I'm just looking for the actual name of the different animations here, but they look fine. So that's going to be okay. And the name here should also match. And then the raccoon geo, this is going to be the actual model here, should also be fine. So we can add this, and there they are. And then we also want to add the texture file. So this is going to be under textures entity raccoon PNG. So textures, and then we need a new directory called entity, and then a new directory called raccoon. There you go. That's actually 1 O too many. That's fine. There you go. Just press Shift and F6, and then we can change this. And this is the raccoon.png. There you go. And then we have this one as well. So all of the stuff for the model is basically set up as we want it to, and we can then proceed to change the renderer. So in the renderer, what we want to do is we want to extend the geo entity renderer class right here. Once again, angled brackets, and once again, the raccoon, not model actually. We want to pass in the entity here, then cover over this, create constructor matching super. And then the first thing we want to do is delete the second actual parameter here. And then instead of the model provider, we're going to make a new raccoon model. There you go. And then also change one method, or override one method. And there's the get texture location method, where we basically take the same one right here. So we're just going to copy this one as well, the actual raccoon PNG, and just pass this in as well. And that would be all that we need to do right here. So we're of course not quite done just yet, but this is almost everything that we need to do in order to add our entity to the game. And the next step is we're actually going to make sure that everything here is set up correctly. So in the mod client class now, we want to, or the tutorial client class in this case, we want to add the registration, the actual rendering. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the following. We're going to call entity renderer registry.register mod entities.raccoon, raccoon renderer : new. So this is what we need to do in that case, and that would then render the raccoon correctly. This is very important. Otherwise, you might actually crash, I believe, if you try to spawn this entity because it's not rendered properly. What we also need to do is we need to make sure that our raccoon, so let's actually close a few things here, our raccoon entity has the attribute set. So this is also very important. Every step here is basically important. So we're going to do this in our mod registries in this case. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a new custom method here, private static void, and then we're going to call this the register attributes method. And this is going to call the fabric default attribute registry dot register mod entity mod entities dot raccoon, and then raccoon entity dot set attributes. There you go. And then of course don't forget to also call this here, there you go, and then it should work fine. So now our attributes are being set as well. This is very, very important. Otherwise, our entity is also not going to spawn, and you might actually also crash when you try to spawn it. So I believe that in theory, what we should already be able to do is spawn this entity via the summon command. However, I also wanted to add a custom spawn egg because let's just make a lot of sense to do that as well. So let's go into our mod items class. Let's just copy over the honey bucket right here. And this is going to be the raccoon underscore spawn underscore egg. And then same right here. This is going to be the raccoon underscore spawn underscore egg. And this is going to be a spawn egg item. And the first parameter here is actually going to be mod entities.raccoon. And then it's going to have 2 more parameters, which I actually will copy over. Those are going to be the primary colors, or the colors for the actual egg. So this is going to be the primary color, and the secondary color is just in hex, basically. And that is all that we need to do here. For this, we actually still need to add both a translation as well as a model file. So let's just go in here and let's just get the translation over. That's just going to be the raccoon spawn egg, should be fairly self-explanatory. And then the model file is the same thing. So just basically the actual spawn egg. Let's just copy this over. All of this is once again, of course, available to you in the description below. Get a repository and individual just as well. You can see this just takes in Minecraft item template spawn egg. So this will color the actual spawn egg in those colors. And that is pretty much all that we need to do here. And those should be all of the steps. So you can see it is quite a lot of things that you have to do. But overall, when you really look at it, each individual step is not that crazy. And now you can go, of course, into crazy, crazy detail with a lot of stuff, right? Especially the goals. This is one of the things where it's like, I mean, you're just going to have to be open to experimentation. I'm going to say this once again, try out a bunch of stuff, see what you can basically come up with, and maybe possibly even make some of your own goals. I mean, you have plenty of goals that you can, well, take a look at and see how they work. And I can't recommend that enough, basically. But whatever the case may be, this is all that we need to do. So let's see if it works. All right, we find ourselves back in Minecraft, and as you can see, the raccoon spawn egg is successfully added. So let's just spawn one, and there we go. There it is with the idle animation, and it's even looking at me right now. So that's really freaking awesome. Let's see, once it starts walking, then we can actually see the walking animation as well. Let's just see. Come on, walk, wander around. Let's just add a few more. Let's see. There we go. So now they're starting to walk. That's really freaking awesome. You can also hear the, the sounds. Let's just, there you go. And then the death sound should be the pig. Yeah, that's, I mean, really kind of funny, but yeah, this is how easy it is to add custom, entities here. And it's freaking amazing, right? This is really freaking awesome. And yeah, I mean, that's how easy it can be. All right, a tiny addendum right here that is quite important that I may or may not have forgotten to add in originally. You actually want to call geckolib.initialize right here in your onInitialize method. Very important, otherwise you will run into some issues, possibly on the server, things like that. So keep that in mind and add this as well. Right, and that would already conclude this tutorial right here. I genuinely hope you found this useful and you learned something new. If you did, I would very much appreciate a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials just like this one. I also want to thank all of my lovely Patreon supporters for supporting me and this channel. It is very much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. So, yeah.